Hello, Strand. How you doing?
Good evening, Cornelia, and good evening
Yeah.
to everyone else listening from abroad as well.
Yes, we have promised to do this in English,
Yeah,
and we have such a nice flow in Swedish, so I don't know how we will cope with this, but
we'll work it out.
yeah, we'll work it out. Okay, so just a short background. Please tell. You are really active on Twitter or X.
Yeah,
Please tell us a little bit
I
about
made,
yourself.
I made Twitter my battleground back in 2017 or something like that.
Mm.
After following Q for a while, I became more and more active on X or Twitter as it was called back then. And from that day, I've been following Q, I've been following Trump, I've been following Karl Norberg and De Fria, and working
Free
quite
People's Movement. Yes.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
working quite frequently to try to raise awareness for what is actually happening in Sweden, especially, and also around the world. Since the core of the deep state is Sweden, so the knowledge has to come from here. So that is
Yeah,
a
we
short.
want to we
Yeah,
want to be the one telling the world
yeah, we
actually
have
what
to.
a few Swedes have done.
Yeah, we have to
And you
because
have a motto as well. And your motto is to have such a nice pace or a fast pace so that the controlled opposition can't keep up with you.
exactly. Yeah, moving fast forward and because spending time blabbing with people that don't want to understand is there's no point in that. It's just waste of time. There are so many people that actually want to understand and want to educate themselves about the situation. So spending times with trolls and NAFO Nazis and things like that, it's no point. So I'm going fast forward.
Exactly. Yeah, today we will do this in English, and we are thinking about doing twice per week actually, one in Swedish and one in English. But you have a lot of followers, and we want to spread the word. So, but what's your background before 2017, Gestand?
Yeah, I was a purchase manager, production manager, and facility manager for one of the biggest cosmetic uh, conglomerate worldwide. It's actually one of the biggest cosmetic brands worldwide.
Yeah.
So I worked with this Nordic and Baltic regions. So and I traveled a lot, Europe. I made business with China, uh, with Europe, Russia, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Estonia, and things like that.
Yeah, and my background is from finance. I've been working um, uh, different positions within finance, and also my mother was really interested in stocks, so I kind of grew up discussing companies and what they do and the leverage, and also she was telling me a lot about, for example, China or Russia and how they their mentality was in their companies. And the special thing about Russia is that they have so much money, on their bank accounts. They just stock up with money. In Sweden, we have different tactics, and but they don't hide it in Russia. So they are really liquid, and yeah, and
Yeah.
also how yeah, they don't take loans in the same way and so on.
Well, regarding natural resources, I think Russia is one of the wealthiest countries on the planet because they have all the natural resources within their boundaries, and so they don't need any other countries. So it's
No,
quite.
they have all the climate. Do they have 11 time zones or is it
I
12?
think it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have so many nationalities. I mean, they have this minority, so many languages and so on. And I don't think Russia want to grow. Actually, they are content, but they really want to protect what they have and protect their people. And the interesting thing was that when they kicked out SWIFT, they actually paid off their debt to EMF, and then they just they arrested some of these bankers, these deep state bankers, and then the headlines were like they are going bankrupt, and now we can read in the headlines, oh they are actually doing better better than the West.
Yeah, even though the West made sanctions against Russia, that really boosted their economy. Unfortunately for the West, but that is planned, of course. So it's planned action, and that is to get rid of the oligarchs, the Western oligarchs in Russia, and banksters, and who all resides or originates from Sweden, actually, and
Yeah,
the
but the
Wallenberg.
Swedish oligarch, they didn't sanction them. They
Oh,
found
that's
ways to
a big
to
difference between that. We have Oleg Deripaska, for instance, in Sundsvall in Sweden, that never got any sanctions, but he's still a Russian oligarch, but he served Swedish interest well, so he didn't get any sanctions there. So
and also all the Swedish companies that wanted to export to Russia, they did it anyway, but through subsidiaries and the different countries. And yeah, it's always like that. There are rules for them and other rules for other companies.
and all
Well,
those companies that didn't leave Russia was directly connected to the Wallenbergs and the Swedish original oligarch family. So it's very easy to see, and also the import of gas and natural resources from Russia went to the same family. So it is
yeah.
what it is.
I wanted to show you something that I found. I mean, we have been talking a lot about the financial system, and this is what I would like to talk a little bit about today. And I found a website. It's occ.gov. So this is a government homepage, official. And if you go into that page, you can search in the search button for a quantum financial system. So this is really interesting. This is a document from June 2020, and it says here that in preparation for the global currency reset and arrival of the quantum financial system currently running parallel, any international activity regulated by their respective agencies must strictly comply with no tolerance to all protocol and regulations stipulated in the International Quantum Initiative Act. So this is proof now, and now you can find all this document. And we have said it actually run parallel since August 2020, but this is earlier because it says it's currently running parallel, and this is document from June 2020.
Yes. So they have been
That,
sneaking it in.
yeah. So this is from 17 of June 2020. I thought it was, I was pretty sure it was August, but now I have to yeah. But this is even better. So we know that it's coming, and um, it's really interesting with all these YouTubers and influencers from the US and Sweden and so on that are talking about the financial system. And they talk a lot about how it works and the Federal Reserve and CBDC is bad and so forth, but not so much about what is actually coming and why. I mean, what's the problem with the current system? What do you say about
No,
that?
yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that wants to scare people, and I've seen that quite a lot. It's always about scaring people, and they can't let go of the World Economic Forum and their agenda.
Schwaben.
So Schwab, yeah, because
Ah,
and also if you look into that, you will end up in the knee of Wallenberg. But I think there is a lot of people that want to scare other people, and they don't want to move ahead and talk about what is actually coming. They want to keep you
in
in that
fear.
in fear. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
also, I mean, why aren't people? I mean, we are digital soldiers. We have followed Q from the beginning, and I mean, I feel that they have prepared us all the time to give us more and more and more information. But many people have ceased to do research. They don't share as much. It's the same old, same old. Mm.
yeah. When back in 2009, and especially during the Trump time, there was a lot of old anons still searching for and moving ahead. But for someone, I think they had a trauma when Trump lost the election, and they didn't understand the point of that.
Mm.
So they stopped, and they just stopped in their tracks and keep
Mm.
on talking about the same things, except for Michael Ray Curry, who actually moved ahead with the discussing Ericsson and with the Ericsson report. But so many people just stopped in their tracks when Trump lost the election.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
and when we go into spaces, they don't want to listen to us anymore. I don't know why, but I did an interview with. I have done a few actually. One with Michael Ray Corey that you described there, and the Ericsson report, and that's really crucial because Ericsson is actually the telecom infrastructure in 184 countries. So if we talk about Bank of International Settlements and the financial system, you, I mean, all of that runs on telecom, right? Otherwise, you can use these penguins and but so you need the telecom and the internet, and they have been controlling that up to November 2019. What happened then?
Well, to give everyone a brief insight in the importance of telecom, there is the three major big things. What's called 5G, five generation warfare, and that is economy, and it's information first, economy, and then warfare or military applications. And
Mm.
if you think about those three things, that is central for fifth generation warfare, telecom is in all of them. Because if you take information, well, that's easy. But if you speak about economy, you can't move money, digital money, without using the telecom or computer network
Mm.
that
You
also
can't
runs.
access your bank account. You can't do nothing without telecom. I mean, what should you do? You need power and you need telecom. It doesn't matter. It's not only crypto, it's also your ordinary bank account.
Yeah,
Everything runs on an infrastructure, like payment infrastructure. And all of that is Ericsson
yeah, and
and
also when
ABB.
and ABB as power and supplying power to
Yeah,
150 countries, I think it is. So
yeah.
and add that to military applications like robots, airplanes, ships, and whatnot. It's all BAE. It's all BAE, and the core of BAE is Ericsson, and you have Saab, and you have Bofors that played a crucial role in Second World War and still plays an even more significant role. So you have in the core, you have telecom controlling the military completely, because military needs both communication and guidance and GPS and coordinates and satellites and whatnot, and BAE happens to control all of it. And adding ABB, which is the power supply company in 150 countries. So those countries that don't control their information, they don't control their economy via BIS, Bank of International Settlement, that is also Wallenberg or Investor. And they don't control their military. So if they elect a president in that case, and they don't control their power supply either. So why even vote? Why even have a president? Because it's easy to see who controls that country. And that is...
Are you talking about the US now?
I'm talking about US. I'm talking about all those countries. We have now a change of batter in Argentina. I wrote a lot about Argentina, Central and South America, that has been controlled by the Swedish oligarchs since the beginning of the 1900s. Talking about China, China has, and the CCP has been a Swedish affair. So CCP, when the Americans speak about the CCP, they're actually talking about the Wallenberg family.
Because they are blaming the Chinese, and the Chinese says that a couple of Swedes have controlled their country for 200 years.
So back in 1890s, Sweden took, first of all, they started with the opium trade. But let's skip to the telecom part, since that's what we're talking about here. So in 1890, they got their first telephone lines from a Swedish supplier called Ericsson. And so Ericsson has been controlling the telecom in China since then. And then Guy Minau gave the concession to Ericsson back in whenever, I can't remember when it was, but he knew Xi. So so Xi Jinping knows exactly what has happened to his country, and that is what we're seeing right now. So he's rolling back and kicking out the Swedish oligarchs, just as Milei is doing in Argentina, and we have Ecuador, El Salvador, we have all the African countries that we have infiltrated, or the Wallenberg and Investor. So we have controlled 180 plus countries via telecom, military, and economy.
And on surveillance, you know that Trump said in 2015, he gave us a heads up what was going to happen. He said that there is a company called Ericsson, and they are actually selling telecom equipment to regimes that use that in order to surveil and monitor their own people. So he talked about Ericsson. And then we can find in the Q post a couple of references, but not so much, and not in plain sight. It says that if you control the vast, how is it?
I can't
Yeah, I can
quote it, but controlling the communication or something like that.
vast majority. I just search because this is here we have it. So this is post 4024, and it says, sometimes you can't tell the public the truth. You must show them a deeply entrenched enemy who controls the vast majority of communications is only defeated by game theory Q. So if you can surveil everything, Ericsson and Wallenberg is the sixth eye of five eyes. You can monitor everything. You control the Bees Bank of International Settlements. They have had quantum computers at least since the 70s. So if you have, I mean, the leverage when you control, vast majority of communications, and so they control communications, power grids, payment infrastructure, bees. And what is really, really interesting that I've found, I've done 2 articles, you can find them on Cornelia, unfiltered.com. And this is really interesting because this is, if you search now on bees, Bank of International Settlements, you will find old documents from 1932 here, and you can see that what was it now? Kringla F. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and here we can see that the arbitration committee, Marcus Wallenberg was the chairman. So what we discovered from here is that they actually run like a parallel shadow judicial system through all this, what is it called? Handelskammare. Yeah. Yeah, World Chambers Federation, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is in many countries, like 160 countries, and then they have this arbitration court, and this is in this court and this judicial system. This is where everything happens through, between companies, and but also between governments and so on. And this is the big buck. The money, the big money that is actually done in this court. And this is not a court. This is more that like agreements. And I mean, we are also, we are free individuals and free people. So, I mean, all these laws and public law and private law is, it's more direction. It's not really a law, because, and it says, today, chambers of commerce exist in almost every country in the world. Chambers are still the most important type of multi-sector business organizations, public law and private law. And it says here that, this is.
So if you have 2 companies that are in a conflict, then they arbitrate that, and I guess they would be somewhat biased to what company they would support then. So it's quite obvious that they have been using that for leverage for their companies. That is quite obvious if you see the history and in the rearview mirror the last somewhat 50 years they have used this.
But look here, although called a court in name, we do not make formal judgment or on dispute matters. Instead, we administer arbitrations by exercising judicial supervision of arbitration proceedings. So it's not the court, but they call it the court, and this is always like this, you know.
It's very
Um,
Swedish, yeah.
and this is really Swedish. This is and of course the chairman. He's not the chairman, but he's the cash manager. You know, you can't leave the cash management to another person. Then they have to take, you know, all the cash. The cashes are, you know, they have to control them themselves. So
Always in
they
key positions, always in key positions.
exactly. So you can have all these operatives and directors and so on, but the cash, they won't leave that. Yeah.
The
So
one who
this is,
controls the
yeah.
money controls the rest of the board or the chairman or whatever they're called. So if you control the money, and there is also another aspect of when speaking of Ericsson, and there is one layer more, and that is the computer chip that is originate from ST Ericsson, which is another company that I wrote about. So they they control the chip production in Taiwan. So now that we have a conflict in Taiwan regarding the chip manufacturing, that is actually Swedish, and the the core is actually Swedish because it stems from the ST Ericsson company, and they took all the patents. They started ST Ericsson, made a lot of chip and infrastructures, chips and things like that, and then they took all the patents, moved it to Ericsson, and killed ST Ericsson. So it's now
Ericsson has like 60,000 patents,
yeah.
and they stole a lot from Eva Krieger and you know, during Second World War and so on. They have stolen so much from Germany and from all over, but this chips is the reason why the fridge can surveil you.
Yeah, and the car and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, everything electric will be able to have a chip, and I can promise you that
And
it has a
speaking
backdoor.
of, there is this gyro chip called QRS-11, and Sweden is one of the biggest suppliers or beneficiaries from Soros and the Clinton family. And apparently Clinton owns that QRS-11 gyro chip that was in a lot of airplanes and stuff. And now when BAE Saab and Ericsson controls a majority of the chips. I mean, in aiming sights for armed tanks or in GPS chip in aircrafts and airplanes and so
We get it. We get it, Gestan.
well,
You're so
absolutely everything.
everything,
There
everything that
was
has
an
a
American
plug into.
there was an American airplane, a military airplane that got lost not so long ago, but kept flying.
Yeah,
I wonder how that happened. Wink,
yeah,
wink.
and also Trump said that, you know, it's our missiles, but we don't control them. He
Exactly.
said that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
who did?
yeah.
Yeah. And we also believe that Sweden is under siege by the US military. And
Most certainly, yes.
yeah, and we believe that it was in 2017 because we have a company that was partly state-owned, Telia, and they also use, of course, the core technology of Ericsson, so they have to pay all these license fees. but actually the Swedish and the Finnish government co-owned 40%. The Swedish government of Telia, and the U.S. Justice Department actually, yeah, they how do you say, they arrested them. they 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 ruled that they had to pay all this. So it's in plain sight. You can read about their corruption, and they had like a setup. They were draining the tax money of different countries, like Azerbaijan and different countries, and they used it with the dictators. So they used the dictators in that country, they pay them off, they bribe them, and then they, of course, sold telecom infrastructure, and they drained the tax money. So in Azerbaijan, they took 7 billion Swedish krona. And of course, if you get sentenced by the US Justice Department, and you see that, okay, this company is partly owned by the Swedish government.
Yeah.
You can't have a country like that are in cohort with all of these companies that are actually doing, frauds and crimes against humanity and everything that these companies have done. We have another company called Lundin, and they are on trial now for 2.5 years for what they did in Sudan, and they killed so many people. It's crimes against humanity, and they are, of course, related to Wallenberg. They are married, intertwined, their families. So
And that's how they have been doing it, because they have been bribing abroad, they have been killing people abroad, and they have been doing all kinds of racketeering in other countries. And then, like rats, they ran back to Sweden, to Swedish courts that is totally corrupt. And then they didn't get
their own court, the arbitration court,
the
because
arbitration
that's
system.
where it's settled. And,
Yeah.
and then they have the government on their side, and they have the monarchy, because the monarchy is immune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also have the what's it called, used in the Estonia case?
Abolition. So this is
Abolition, yeah.
We had what's his name, that came here and said it's all about the judicial system.
Robert O'Brien.
Yeah, Robert O'Brien came here. It was the trial against ASAP Rocky.
Yep.
He did something in Sweden, they thought, and Trump was so upset he wanted to release them. But the Swedish government said that no, we don't interfere in the judicial system. And then Robert O'Brien came here, and actually it was Trump that raised this, but you have this abolition, and abolition is actually when the Swedish government, regeringen, it's not the parliament, right? It's the government, yeah. So, and they said, but you can, as a government, use abolition, and that means that it can never be investigated.
They even stopped
Or
the pre-trial or the exam, the police work. They even stopped the police work from investigating it. So it's
the police can't, and the prosecutor can't. Nobody can investigate, or maybe they can investigate, because there's two different saying in that law or policy, and it says that either you can't investigate or sentence. So you can't rule. You can maybe investigate, but and that's really important, because sometimes we look at the case and say like, okay, it's dropped before they started even to investigate, but that's not really the case. They can actually investigate, but they can never sentence, so they can never be convicted.
So there we have. So
there why investigate?
So there we have Telia in Kazakhstan, when they bribed Gulnara Karimova
Yes.
and ran home to Sweden, and then they ruled that Gulnara Karimova was not bribable.
No,
That's
because she
that,
was a daughter, so you can't bribe
yeah,
her in
yeah.
order to get to her parents because they are not related.
And everyone was
With
freed. So that is, and now we have Lundin in Crimes Against Humanity, the Lundin trial regarding Sudan, where Sweden has controlled and stole all their natural resources for God knows how long. And that has dragged out like 10 years or something like that. They have
Yeah,
started.
and we have a famous bloody Swede,
Yeah,
and he was on the board.
yeah, Carl Bildt.
Carl Bildt. Carl
He was
Bildt.
actually the
Yeah.
prime minister for some time in Sweden as well, and he was also up for being the prime minister in Ukraine. There was actually talk about that. So that's how corrupt he is.
Yeah. So, and yeah.
And he connects directly to Clinton and Milton Friedman and whatnot. So Atlantic Council.
And Soros.
So he's called the Bloody Swede.
He has blood on his hands. You know that I did a tweet and I wrote on Facebook about it was one alternative media that talked about I don't know if I can say it because actually Facebook, they took down my account when I posted that, and that is about that's about Trump, because they were talking in the channel about him getting killed and so on. And when I wrote that, I got suspended. I got a warning also on X. So I don't think you are allowed to write that. And
No.
it was not me saying, I was just quoting what he said in the video, but still they took down my account.
Yeah, I noticed that Facebook is very, very sensitive. So I heard I'm not allowed to have Facebook anymore, but even X has been quite sensitive the last couple of weeks. So even though I get away with quite a lot, so
yeah, but it has to. I mean, this is an information war, and you can't have one narrative dominating.
no.
You have to have different narratives, and people have to decide for themselves. You can't just ban all the liars and the
No.
operatives and the control opposition and so on. You can't just ban them, because people need to see that and think for themselves that can this be true? How does it work? So it's about when you raise your awareness, you have to have this, I call it bullshit detector, and you have to really find it, so and make up for yourself, what do I think? And it will be, I can feel now that a lot of influencers have, they have maybe said 90% truth and 10% lies, and they have get away with it up until now, gone away with. But now it's I don't think they will do that anymore, because now it's really important. And all of this, when we talk about the economy, I think really it's time now. We have the Quantum Initiative Act, we have the quantum financial system, we have BRICS, and BRICS is so huge. I mean, why doesn't all the influencers talk about BRICS?
Yeah, that puzzles me also a bit. That I mean, if we want to look at or get a glimpse of the future, you might want to look at BRICS and how they're handling their economy and how they are doing it. Even if you don't believe in quantum or whatever we call it, you should look at BRICS and see how they have been handling it and connecting to gold to get a level of value of the money and take it from there. So I think it's a good point to have a look at BRICS, a close look at BRICS.
I mean, I don't think that the Americans understand that. I mean, the dollar has dominated like 90% of global trade. So it was like a world currency, if you will.
Yeah.
And now you have like 80% of world GDP that together simultaneously are ditching the dollar.
Yeah, and that will have an impact, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, 80%. You can have the
Yeah.
20%, and that's nothing. I mean, and
that's
we know that.
why it's strange that not more and especially American speak about it. They're losing like 80, as you said, 80% of the dollar market, and they're not talking about it. I find that very strange, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and also all this, gold standard that they're going back to. I mean, the Russia has linked their ruble to gold, and you have Texas even
Mm.
that want to do that. Also, you have in the US talking about linking the dollar to gold, and why do we say 80% of world GDP? It's because that the countries now that have applied, it's more than 40 countries that have applied, and the BRICS have said since the beginning that all of the countries that apply will be automatically approved. And in that case, we have 80% of world GDP, and
Yeah.
they are ditching the dollar. But I mean, the US are also ditching the dollar because, Trump is working with the BRICS, because BRICS is quantum financial system.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And already when speaking about Russia and China being BRICS, I mean that is a substantial part of the world market and world world market. So even that should raise some questions in general, and especially people looking for the truth. So, but then you have Argentina, you have the all the other countries also.
India.
India and
It's
the
a huge
African
market,
countries.
and they are so well educated. They
Yeah,
have a lot, they have so much education there. I mean, did you know that you did know that, but India is actually the country where Ericsson has the most employees. So it's like a Swedish colony, more or less.
yeah, more or less, yeah.
Mm.
And Sweden has controlled India for quite some time, yeah. And we have some also the Bofors scandal.
Don't force me.
Don't Bofors me, yeah. Where we sold Haubitz 77. That is a howitzer to India. And there was a scandal around that as well. So, and that is also Bofors and Wallenberg. So it's everything is revolving around that family, and we had a game where we find the bloody Swede or find the damn Swede, and we always found him in every aspect. We found a damn Swede. In whatever it was, whether it was digging into COVID or if it was digging into arms trade or money or whatever it was, we found the damn Swede. So
Yeah. So And I was really happy when, not happy, but when I found the real connection uh, from the 1930s to bees, because we knew all along that the Valdemar was involved, but now it's actually in plain sight. You can go into the old documents and find it. And also, if you go on occ.gov, you can find everything about the financial system. So, what I think will happen is actually that I think CBDC, or whatever you want to call it, there has to be like a digital currency that can meet the dollar and the krona and the pound and everything, um, and the euro. But I don't think the euro will. I think it will be divided. I think, for example, that Germany will go back to their D-mark, and yeah, the previous. Also, Spain, I believe, will go back to pesetas and so on. So many countries, maybe the euro will have some function, I don't know, but
Yeah,
um,
the construction behind the money is more interesting than the actual money, because if you don't have private banks, if you have a governmental or a central bank of the people, controlled by
yeah,
the people, then they
state
can,
owned, but the state is like under the people. It is truly transparent.
yeah, in that case they can make whatever the hell money they want, as long as we accept it. So we can call it whatever. We will still need digital money. We will still need cash. We will still need all that. But the
Mm.
construction behind it is more important, that it's not controlled by families, oligarchs, or private companies. So,
Mm.
and that goes for on a global scale. So that goes for Germany. That goes for Sweden, and especially Sweden should not control the money in other countries. That is the
No,
absolute minimum of demands, and of course, private enterprises shouldn't be allowed to make their own money. That's just sick. So
and we know that the Federal Reserve and the BIS and so on, that's privately held.
yeah, yeah,
That's privately owned. It's not the government. And also the telecom infrastructure, the sixth eye and five eyes, that is also private. Ericsson is private. So when people say that the government can see you, that the government can surveil you, that's not true. It has never been the government.
no, it's been private companies all along,
Yeah.
and and crucial needs for the people in different countries shouldn't be run by private companies. Like, whether we speak about food or power or telecom or especially not military, at least, should not be run by private companies or private entities like it
It
is
should
now.
be a public utility,
Yeah,
and it should be fully transparent. And also, I mean, the money we have now in bank accounts, all of that is digital. I mean, if it was analog, we wouldn't even need a bank account, right? So we have digital dollars, digital krona, and so on now, and that is privately held. It's not the government, right? So if we were to have a central bank, or a bank at least under the people, fully transparent, you have to have a digital dollar, a digital krona to meet up with the digital money that we have today. So in order to transfer the money into the newly created bank or central bank or what you want to call it, you have to make a digital dollar and a digital krona, and that is what they are doing now. And so it's not so strange actually, but because we can't, I don't think that we can go to a fully analog system. I mean, do we even want that? I mean, then we wouldn't need any bank account. We would just, go with our cash everywhere, and yeah, we will go back to the Stone Age.
No, we can't have that, because if I want to buy something from Germany, what would I do? Order it on the internet and then take sneaker money and put on my sneakers and run to Germany and pay them in cash? No, that doesn't work. So we have to have a digital payment system which is already in place, and so trade should of course be utilized and still be working, because otherwise we will go back to Stone Age. But there is also another key issue with the money that we have, since it's privately owned and privately controlled, and that is, since the bank create money when taking a loan, so it's debt based, but the interest is never made. So the interest creates a growth, a continuous eternity growth.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect, and
and that erodes the money and moves money up the system. So it moves money away from you. So you get poorer every day, and a few people get richer every day. So that is the core of the privately held money or payment systems. The continuous eternal growth that needs to be done on an endless planet, that can't be sustained any longer. So that is debt saturation that we have reached now, and that is why big luxury brands in Germany are going bankrupt, and
the government has to borrow money to be able to pay out salaries in Sweden.
Yeah, and I think it's the same in at least other European countries, where they have to make new loans to create more money to pay the debt that was taken, or the interest of the debt that was taken previously. So it's we have reached the end regarding economy.
You know that I worked in an insurance company, Folksam. They have been in business for 150 years. And actually, they had 200 IT systems that couldn't communicate with one another. So sometimes we have to look for clients' money, and then they have to go like in the basement and look in this old system, and then they can find maybe 50 years old insurances and so on. But in order for all of this to work, I mean, if we are to transfer all the data and all the money from this current system, this BIS Swift system, into the new quantum financial system that is the same as BRICS, and it has to be like a digital currency, then you use the ISO 222, the new standard, So that is only the communication language in order to be able to transfer money from one to another. And by doing so, let's say you have 10,000 in your bank account, Gesland, and then we transfer it into the central bank of Sweden, for example. We have accounts there and everything. Then in order to be able to communicate, they have to have this system. But you can transfer your money because you have actually liquid money in your account. You have 10,000. But the banks, they don't have any money. What they have is your promise that you will repay the loan. And they have actually, signed off as assets. But that is not an asset to have debt.
It's
and
a
you have
higher
all
yield.
these debtors that promise to repay the loan. So, and what will happen when they can't bring that money, because that fictive money is not money, it's actually debt, and they have like a lien on you that you have to repay this. And when they can't bring this into the new system, we will have an automatic debt forgiveness. We can't solve it another way, because the money doesn't even have, they don't have any money. They have just debt. And they have all these heads that have promised to repay all these loans. So this is how I believe that this debt forgiveness will be. It's just mathematics. You can't do it in another way, because this fictive assets cannot be brought into a system. There isn't even any money in the bank account, you know. So that's how I think that this will play out.
So if they did that and did nothing else, so remove all the debt, all the money would also disappear if they don't
Exactly.
shift
Yeah.
it into some real assets in the meantime.
Exactly.
And that would be something like whatever, gold, silver, stones, sticks, or
Diamonds.
whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, an easy way to explain it is that if everybody were to repay their loans today, let's say we repay all the debt, then we would have no money, because
no,
that is what we use as money, right?
yeah,
And then you have the interest on top. And that's the problem. And it would have been a problem even if it was the central banks. Let's say it was not the private system, but they also have this interest that is not created at the same time as the loan is issued. Then we would have the same problem. And now it's been, I mean, too many years. In the Bible, you had like debt forgiveness every 50 years. We haven't had that, you know, in many, many, many years.
no, and especially in Sweden, you have a lifelong debt to the banks.
Yeah.
And not long ago, we had also they put all the debtors that couldn't pay the debt, they put in special poorhouses. I'm not sure the correct word for it, but it's called gäldstuga in Swedish. So it's a house of debt. Ditt ljud försvann.
I was talking on mute. So sorry. Ah, and I was talking and talking and talking. Yeah, but yeah, it's like a debt cottage. So
Yeah,
you were to sit there, and then maybe your relatives could buy you out. But maybe they
yeah.
said, "Oh no, he's just complaining. He can sit there." You know, maybe they didn't want to cash you out. So
I think that
this was
is,
up until the 1850s, I think.
yeah, scary. There is another. I'm not sure if you saw the Tucker Carlson show that we spoke about regarding the Ozempic,
Yes.
the diet. Did you see that?
Yeah, so I listened to it. Yeah.
Because that and he mentions Novo Nordisk and the foundation of the Knut and Wallenberg, Alice Wallenberg Foundation.
Mm.
And now Tucker Carlson is just like me, running wild. So now he's in Moscow to interview, potentially Putin.
Yeah.
So that is really, really interesting. That will break the internet if he does that.
Yeah, I can tell you. Let's just see. Yeah, I saw him, in this. It was the Russian flag behind him, and he had this Russian hat.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so funny. Yeah, but that was really scary when we talk about Novo Nordisk, and because what they said that was that it was kind of illegal. No, it was illegal in Sweden and European countries, but they were only selling to the US, and
Yeah.
they prescribed this to teenagers,
Yeah.
even though they knew all these side effects and and what I think about when we talk about the this industry with the pharmaceutical industry, it's been going on for so long, and they have made us so sick through sugar. We know that sugar, actually it was the Otto Warburg, he got the Nobel Peace Prize, I think it was in 1950, for the exploration that sugar is actually linked to cancer directly.
Yeah. I think it was the Nobel Prize in Medicine that he
Yeah.
got way back when. Yeah.
1950, I think, Otto Warburg. And it's the same Warburg, the Warburg Bank. They were behind the Federal Reserve Act. They were also behind IG Farben and the Warburg Bank that financed Hitler and so on. It's the same Warburg. So they knew about this sugar. And I mean, Sweden is the country we eat the most sugar in the whole world, I think. I think actually we do that. And now they see an uptick in cancer after the vaccine. And what I feel like when we're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, it's like we always end up in this vaccine that was issued in 2021 against COVID, and then we ends there. But I mean, we can talk about all these years, all these diseases, all these drugs. I mean, the whole population is on drugs. I think they said that like 50% of the population, the grown up in the US, have diabetes.
I think it was actually 60% and
Yeah.
30% in teenagers.
Mm.
And that is a scary number.
Yeah, and then they say, okay, take this shot, lifelong shot, all of the time, instead of changing your diet and changing the way you live and so on. And we really have to stop doing this. We must be able to talk about the whole problem, the whole industry, all of the medications, because we don't want any of them, right? We know that
No,
they have made us sick.
yeah, and it's so much money in this business, and it also revolves around a few companies. I think it
Recurring
was,
clients. I mean, they want recurring clients. They don't ever want us to be healthy or,
and if you research the companies creating the drugs, you will end up in IG Farben and the Nazi and Auschwitz and whatnot. And there was I published a picture where there was 13 different pharmaceutical companies, all related directly to IG Farben, that run the Auschwitz concentration camp and financed Hitler. So with that said, and you can also, regarding this Ozempic, I researched that as well. You will end up in Israel and also a touch on Second World War and the Nazis and whatnot. So
yeah.
it's the basis of all the pharmaceutical industry is IG Farben and the Nazi regime that was also Wallenberg in its core and foundation. So, and they just kept going. They just kept going, and now we have the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation, financing all kinds of research and stem cell research and everything, and abortions and molecules and biological things. It's always, if you go back, it's always IG Farben, and you will end up in the Wallenberg family and the foundations. So it's a swamp, really, really a swamp. Yeah. And they make us sicker all the time.
And what I think, I mean, we are patriots all over the world doing research and sharing information with one another. And I think it's really important to keep on digging and keep on researching and think outside the box. It's not only US, it's not an isolated island. It's, I mean, the financial system actually is from BIS, Bank of International Settlements. The Federal Reserve is not isolated in any way. So, and I think we can feel that the information or the pace is you know, quickening all the time now, and for us to be able to process that and also share it with others and explain to other people how we ended up here, what is really happening, and why is the financial system plummeting now, why, you know, and we have to be able and keep on digging and share that information. But if we get lazy and just stop doing research and think we have all the answers, and we just recycle the same information all the time. I mean, for example, these articles that I wrote now, that Wallenberg runs a global shadow judicial system, this was kind of new information for us. It was we knew it. No, I didn't really understand how they did it through all these chambers all over the world, and that this is where this is the real chamber. I mean, this is the real judicial system. So, and if we would just have thought that we had all the answers, we wouldn't have found that. And I mean, you have Strand, you have 6,000 something followers, and in just a couple of months ago, you had 5,000. So really, you have gained a lot of, and that is due to your. I mean, you are working so hard, creating all these threads and really sharing information, and people see that, and people are appreciating you for that. And so
I think
this is your profile. So if you aren't following Gistran on X, please do. Yeah.
And I think what you'll find regarding the BIS and the proof that Wallenberg is, and also Thomas McKittrick, that they are a central part in the creation of BIS.
But McKittrick was vice chairman.
Yeah,
he wasn't even the chairman. He was vice. So
vice.
so who was in charge, right?
And that is also huge, and that is something that we knew about, but we couldn't prove it. But now we can prove
exactly.
it, and that is just as huge as proving that Wallenberg owned the shares of IG Farben, and then connecting IG Farben to the race of Hitler and to Auschwitz and all those crimes against humanity. It's just as huge, and we as Swedes can't afford to be lazy, because it stems so much, all of the problems stems from Sweden and this one or two families. We have the Lundin and the Wallenbergs. So we can't afford to be lazy, and we get some help nowadays from Tucker Carlson for one, but they're not telling the whole story. We have to tell that. So like when Tucker Carlson is presenting and mentioning Novo Nordisk, then it's up to us to point to the fact that Wallenberg is behind, and Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation that is behind that company. So that is, I guess, what our work is focused around, telling the whole story, the part that they leave out.
Exactly. And also when we found this, I mean, occ.gov, this is an official website of the United States government. And then you just push search and quantum financial. And then we can see that we have many hits here. So it's just dig into this and find more of this puzzle bits, so we can do this together. But I mean, the quantum thing is real, and we have the website quantum.gov. So the quantum is coming, and it has been around for quantum. Oh, sorry. It has been around. We have Carl Norberg in Sweden. I think you should follow him as well. He said that they have actually had these quantum computers since the 50s, 1950s, and so here you can see all this initiative. So the quantum is real, and that is a supercomputer that you won't even be able to have all these passwords and so, because it breaks all the codes. So this will be fully transparent, and we have to be ready for that. And in order to be able to be ready for that, we have to raise our awareness and really understand more about how, I mean, why should I care if I don't do anything wrong? What do I have to hide? I mean, if I go and buy milk, who cares? I mean, either they say now, oh, with CBDC, the government will be able to trace all your purchases, and they will be able to close your bank account, la 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 la. Yeah, but the private banks now have been doing that forever.
Yeah, we have the Swedish money laundering banks. We only have money laundering banks in Sweden. They are all guilty to one of the biggest money laundering in the world. So, I mean, transparency is crucial and is the key to get out of this mess that we're in. And those who don't want transparency are like banks and companies that don't
terrorists.
have
terrorists,
terrorist finance.
And I mean, all these criminals.
And there we have Ericsson also financing ISIS for 17 years. I mean, would they want transparency? No, transparency is like the worst thing, is like kryptonite for them. It's the worst thing they know. So having transparency, I mean, it's how Sweden has financed the color revolutions in different countries. That is also, if we had a transparent financial or economic system, that wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be able to pull it off. So speaking of that, we have the UNRWA now. And Sweden is one of the biggest financier of the UNRWA. And that is only the money that we can see. And then SIDA, who is a help organization, they don't have any papers. So you don't know how much money they have sent to them. So, and now they have put together a Nordic group to investigate what has happened. So
exactly.
in one of those is a Wallenberg. I can't say, it's too stupid actually, because Wallenberg will be part of investigating what has happened in UNRWA. So
so here's your tweet: to investigate yourself for for heaven's sake. Or, yeah. So this we love this oberoende utredningar. How do you say that?
Independent
yeah,
inquiries.
investigatory. Exactly.
So they call it independent, but they are extremely dependent. So it's always the opposite. So three Nordic institute will dig into UNRWA, and that is it's so stupid you can't imagine.
So it's the former prime minister, how do you say, foreign minister of France, and then you have Raoul Wallenberg Institute of Sweden, CHR Mikkelsen Institute in Norway, and Danish Institute for Human Rights. That sound human rights. That's always something with Soros, right?
Yeah.
So everything with human rights, peace, like democracy. Yeah. And when we see that, okay, so George Soros is pro human rights, pro democracy, then I feel like, oh, then I'm against it. I'm against democracy. Because I don't think that we have had democracy even. Yeah.
If they represent democracy, I'm not pro-democracy. Definitely.
Then if they are pro peace, then we don't want peace.
No. Whatever they are pro, I'm against.
Exactly, so, I'm against. So they are pro peace, I'm against peace. Yeah. So and I mean the feeling when you do a dig and you find all these connections that you have been searching for so long, then I mean it's the kick that you get from that is so amazing.
When everything falls into place like a puzzle,
yeah. And then I can call you and we are so happy, celebrating. It feels like we are winning all the time, and now we can find the information. Now if you just search for it, it just pops up. Before you really had to like look for it, but now it's just in plain sight, not even hidden.
Just a couple of years ago it was a real challenge to find connections and things like that. Now it's just a googling away. It's
exactly.
right under you if you search, that is. And speaking of Soros, Taylor Swift is very hot right now, and she is financed by Soros. She tells herself so. And Soros, we have to mention that also. Soros is controlled by Wallenberg via Daniel Sachs. So
also he uses their bank. So his quantum funds, he has them in SE-banken in Sweden. The Wallenberg bank.
And that is also a thing everyone speaks about Schwab and everyone speaks about Soros without going to the core of it. The ones that control both Schwab and
It's just a puppet.
Soros, because it's quite simple. Soros is connected via Daniel Sachs and the quantum funds into Investor. And then you have Klaus Schwab. What's his name now?
Adolf Lundin.
Yeah. So it's all connected to the Wallenbergs.
Yeah.
So
And they
stop
have been around for
screaming about
200 years.
Wallenberg
So...
or Soros or yeah. They are senior in this game.
Yeah, because Daniel Sachs is on the board, and his sister Fanny Sachs is actually married to Wallenberg. So they keep it within the family.
Yeah.
Also, I did a little dig here. I haven't, but now if you go to Federal Reserve and just search for Wallenberg, actually you get results here. U.S. resolution plan for SCB. So this can be something. U.S. resolution plan. So I don't know what this means, but this is also, so we have a lot of digging to do, and yeah, we do this in English because we want to reach out to you and we want to activate you and help us, and we can help each other to dig, because this is the core. And when you find the Swede and when you found Wallenberg and all the links, you will see that how everything is tied together. Because you can have Rothschild, let's say they have 600 trillion dollars, let's say that. Well, if the Wallenberg would, just push the button and remove Ericsson from BIS, Bank of International Settlements, there will be no financial system. So the Rothschild would never be able to access their funds. They need telecom and electricity. And I mean, the core technology of that, linking everything together, is the system of Wallenberg. So it's like the glue that keeps everything together. So, I mean, everything now is digital. They also controlled the internet. But what happened in 2019? Gestan, we have to repeat that.
Yeah, the DOJ took control over the over Ericsson due to liabilities and the crimes they have had commit. So
Yeah, and
the
corruption.
DOJ or just this Department of America took control over Ericsson in November 2019. And now it's under Space Force controlling Ericsson. So that is a central shift in control. So now everything is reversing. From that part, I knew that we, the Patriots, won.
Exactly.
So
That
from
was
that,
so vital, so
yeah,
important, because I mean,
it's
all the
crucial.
information, the communication that Q wrote about, if you control that, I mean, how can you trick an enemy that always have the upper hand, always can surveil everything? It's not easy. And we
No,
have all
and
these satellites that cover the Earth. So,
yeah,
I mean, you have this surveillance device, the telephones and everything with the chips in it, everything that you can plug into electricity, have all these chips. But also you have the satellites that can
yeah.
also surveil. So, I mean, how can you win against an enemy that are so entrenched?
No,
Yeah.
the world never stood a chance since
No.
they took over the telecom. The world never stood a chance, and
No.
that also they
Yeah,
control.
and they created that. I mean, look at now. Now we can't live without a phone. Before we didn't even have a phone. So they have not only controlled the development, they have also, I mean, set all the trends. And when we talk about the Tucker Carlson and this pharmaceutical industry and how much money they spend on ads. Yeah, but they have spent on ads in their own companies. So their company and the pharmaceutical company have paid for the ads and all the advertisement in all this television, and they have controlled that too. So they are just putting money from one company to another company. So it goes from all these industries. So I mean, they are just recycling all the money with it, and we think that it's like competition. It has never been competition. They control, key companies in all sectors,
I
right?
think everyone should. I think everyone should research Red B Media,
Yeah.
and the control that Red B Media has over the media outlets, whether it's BBC or whatnot.
Yeah, we can say it's 600 TV stations,
Yeah,
and it's a fully owned subsidiary to Ericsson. So when the DOJ took control over Ericsson, they actually got control. They gained control over web media, and that's the bullhorn. That's the propaganda machine, right?
yeah. And it was actually called Ericsson Media Broadcast from the beginning, but I think it was too obvious, so they had to change it to Red B. But because it is Ericsson. So Ericsson controls both telecom, data communication, the chip, and the bullhorn, that is the media, or all the networks and TV stations and whatnot. So
what I think is
vida.
going on, esse non vedere, continue.
No, that was it. They control the whole spectra, and they're paying the pharmaceutical industry pays for advertising in their own networks.
Exactly.
So it's beyond ridiculous, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And also they own companies, with the food industry. So the food industry make them sick, and then they go to pharmaceutical industry and pay for all the medication. So they create the demand.
Yeah, they make people sick, so they need or obese or
It's so
have
sick, yeah.
so they will need their medications. And it's deliberate.
For life.
They make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whether it's diabetes or obesity or whatever, they make that to make you sick, so they can hand you the medication later.
Yeah, but also we can say that
You're showing your Twitter account right now.
oh, I am.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking, but and what happened in November 2019, the DOJ took control over Ericsson. We said that, and Red B Media, of course. And I think the directive they are giving to the outlets, to the news outlets, it's actually business as usual, because you have to have both narratives and more truth, and then contradictive messaging in order to make people think. Because sometimes when you go into a homepage, it can be, for example, CNN. You can see that it's one news here and then another news that totally contradicts. So the messaging is like, no, it both can be true, right? So, and that is in order to wake people up. And then we have also, I mean, the tour that Trump took in 2017, when all these countries submitted to the patriots, to Trump and so on. So we have a continuity of government. So actually in Sweden, and I think all over the world, but in Sweden we have the state owned. It's not really state owned because it's but the state owned media is actually they are war, how do you say, they are krigsplacerade.
Uh, um,
Yeah, so they are called into because it's like
under military control, so to speak.
yeah. Maybe some in the audience can look it up. No, but yeah. So if we have the state-owned media, which isn't state-owned, but they pretend is state-owned, but they are actually under the continuity of government. So they cannot choose for themselves their messaging. And this is so smart. So when you take control of the head, so the head is Red Bee Media, for example, then you have 600 outlets. And then you can control the messaging to all of these different channels. So you take the head and the head of the snake, they took it really early. We don't know exactly when they took control of the Wallenberg family and the Swedish government, but at least in 2017, maybe before. But it makes sense because in 2017 Trump took down the system, and so we had this system with the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington D.C. So that was the system, and they have their own judicial system also, their own police, their own military, and so on. So when they took control over that, in practice, Trump actually became the president of the world, a wartime president, because we have law of war manual that is valid all over the world. So we have this state of emergency, and this was due to COVID, that actually they could, I mean, rush in and that this was even before, but in, I mean, the law of war manual, um, but that was 2019, so 2017, but then in 2019 we all realized that we are under this state of emergency. So gradually we have been more and more aware of that we actually are in martial law, global martial law.
What they did was they took control of the brain, and the body didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
that
so
was a good.
the brain made the body do things, stupid things, uh,
Mm.
until they lost a limb. So they've been
Exactly.
they've been doing stupid things because the brain told them to, and they most of the people didn't see that this is actually stupid. Why am I doing this? Because they have always told me to do so.
Mm.
So when changing the brain to another control, the body didn't know, and the people below in that hierarchy didn't know either. But I think now it has dawned on them that
Mm.
they are in part of a sting operation, and they are deep in shit. So there is another part of taking control of Ericsson, and that is all the holds they had on people by
Mm.
listening in and taking photos and whatnot, all saved in the Ericsson network as holds on
Mm.
politicians or company owners or so by taking over the Ericsson, they got that also. So they have all, and that I think is part of the phrase "we have it all." So
Yeah, and also, I mean, if everything can surveil us, they have collected our metadata. I mean, they also know criminal things that you are doing. like in the shadows. So and then you can just get a call or somebody visits you and say, okay, we know all this about you. You're hitting your wife and your children. We know about it, and this is what we're gonna do. Um,
Yeah,
so
or if a
mhm.
politician visited Epstein Island, they know, and they can use that as
Yeah,
leverage.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
but that's really obvious. But they could also do this, like, I mean, what you were doing at home. Uh, they knew about if you were out on web pages searching for porn or child sex offenders. That they knew all of them, and they contacted them. Okay, you are a judge and we know this about you, and this is what we're going to do. We won't tell anyone, but you are going to rule in our favor in this and this and this case, and
yeah.
so on. I mean, so they could, I mean, what you can do with all the information, all the surveillance tools, I think, yeah, there are a lot of things you can do.
Imagine the leverage.
Mm.
And if you even can, I think it was you who told me that there was someone that got the freezer.
Yeah, it was in the US. Actually, they got convicted because the freezer was surveilling them. So
Fine.
they were having a talk, and that was evidence in court.
Yeah. And there we end up in ST Ericsson and the ship control. So
Yeah, but you can't even rely on your freezer. That's a shame. I mean, even that betrays you. I mean, this is not easy, you know.
I
Everything can turn on you.
I still have my it's still blinking, you know. Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Behind you. we 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 joked last time that it was surveilling him, but I mean just surrender to it. I speak to the phones, and I have Google Home. I mean, since they are surveilling us anyway through satellites and whatnot, we can as well talk to them.
At
You
least it's
know,
not Ericsson anymore.
no, it's the Space Force.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, Space Force, that it wasn't me. You can just reopen my Facebook account because it wasn't. I was just quoting an idiot. Oh, almost. Yeah. Now I want my account back, actually.
I have a couple of accounts also that I would like back, but those are long gone, so it is what it is.
I also had a Twitter account before, like a Q account. I want that opened, but it's not opened yet. Elon Musk, please. Yeah, so
And that is speaking of Ericsson, we have the AXE telephone exchange system that
mm,
practically every country has, and having that is core and that is key to
mm.
controlling that. So I wrote a lot about it, and I have a couple of Ericsson and LMTEL videos that I received from someone that has knowledge inside the Ericsson and LMTEL. So I have a couple of videos. I will make some more threads on X later on, but it's a vast amount of information that I have to look through first and make something out of. But I've written a lot about it, so just search LMTEL or Ericsson and you will find shitloads.
And actually, that was financed by the Swedish government. So the tax dollar and tax money was paying for that development, and then they just took it.
Yeah,
So this private entity just took, yeah, and this is how they do it, right?
yeah, they have done just like that for for ages and
Mm.
centuries,
Mm.
unfortunately.
So what will happen now, the 10th of March? You know that the Federal Reserve, but also the Swedish central bank, which is the oldest in the world, from the when was it? 1665 or
Yeah.
1685? Yeah, something like that. So they have lent all this money to private banks, right? And it's loan. In Sweden, it's both a loan and that they have paid. They have bought this property bonds from the banks. And what happened now in the US, if the banks can't repay the loan to the Federal Reserve on the 10th of March, what will happen? What do you think?
Well, we will probably, if that is the case, we will see a collapse of banks. I would assume.
And who will own it from that?
Yeah, that would be the taxpayers or the people of that country.
Yeah, because one important thing is that the Federal Reserve in March 2020, it was integrated into the Treasury. So actually, Federal Reserve now has merged into Treasury, and now the Fed has lent all this money. So if the banks can repay, it will all go under the Treasury. And I think we have discussed this in Sweden, but we think that I mean we will have to use some banks. You know, when you buy and sell property and so on, it is good to go to a bank and do all the paperwork and so on. So, but it doesn't have to be all these different brands. It can just say banks. And actually, Axel Oxenstierna in Sweden, he had a vision that it should be a central bank in every city. So in every city should have a central bank. So, you know, maybe it will be a bank or a central bank in every city, and you can go there and they can help you. So, but it will be under Treasury and under the people. So they would have to reform it, right? And then we have ISO 222 to extract the data into the quantum financial system, and then we will have debt forgiveness. So that's more or less how we think that this will play out.
Yeah, something like that. And I'm looking forward to it.
Do you want to add something to that explanation?
No, not really. I'm a bit cautious there because right now we have a huge problems, just like in other countries, with facility and the value, and so we're monitoring that to see how that will play out, and that is just like Evergrande in China. We have we have several in Sweden that has the same problem, and maybe even Sweden will be the the center of that. That is a possibility of that collapse, so to speak, and that would be very funny if that is so.
Yeah, and the media has a problem now spinning. You know, they have said that raising price raise are actually inflation, but inflation is to inject more money. It's inflare, you know, to create more money, and that is not the same as raising the price. And they have spun this so much, and now they are like, okay, now we don't have inflation anymore, but the prices are still going up. So
Yeah.
now they won't be able to get out of this. I mean, you know, with their honor intact.
No, and we were making our darndest to expose it as well, because they write that inflation is going down, but the prices are going up, which is in contrary of what they have said.
Yeah, but then it should be deflation, right?
Yeah.
But they don't say that. Okay, so
No.
so you know, on Black Friday or Black Week, you have you have then you have deflation, and then you have inflation, but actually we have a stagflation,
Yeah.
a stagnation in the economy, and uh, injection of, they have created a lot of money during this period. But actually, I mean, what you have now is that since the people have less and less money in their pockets, the companies, in order to sustain the same turnover, they have to raise the price because the volume is lacking, so it's going down. So the volume is going down, and then they have to raise the price in order to keep the same profit or the same turnover. So and that is what's coming now. They are, you know, they will be able, they will have to say that, you know, and tell the people. But we have done it years before. So but
And
we, yeah.
liquidity in the companies, and also the government and health care system and everywhere is depleted. So the liquidity is being scarce.
Drained. Yeah.
Yeah, drained, totally drained. And I actually lived that today. Another company that didn't have any liquidity left. They had to invoice people to get liquidity so they could pay their own bills.
And that's the reason why people have sold their invoices. You know, they pay a couple of percentage in order to get. Then they won't have to wait for like 30 days or 60 days, and also if you do business with these large companies, they have like 90 days. I remember this was many years ago. I did some business together with Telia actually, and they had 90 days on their invoices. But why?
I think it was Volvo who had to pay their subcontractors. I think they also had 90 days. And I worked a lot with France, and they also had 90 days. So, but not anymore.
No. Okay, Sam, thank you for today. And we will take it in Sweden next time. I see that a lot of you are disappointed. I think we have managed our first live in English really well. Sometimes Swinglish, but I think we have made ourselves understood.
Yeah, and also a shout out to all my followers on in other countries. I hope you enjoyed this session.
Yeah, and also I have a playlist with the English interview. I did an interview with Dr. Jan Holper Hayes, and one with Michael Bay Corey, Jake Angeli, the shaman, and a couple of others. So, and it will be more. But thank you so much for listening, all of you, and yeah, see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Thank you, Strand.
Thank you, Cornelia.
Bye bye. Thank you to all of you.
Bye.
Bye.